So we're actually on page 67 tonight. And we're talking about sympathy, empathy, and compassion.
He's checking.
Okay. We're just verifying that we're up right now. So we
Okay. He's trying to see if he can bring it up on his phone.
it is.
Oh, you heard him? Is you sure your internet is connected to the church website?
Yep.
Okay, he says yes. Oh, it just came on? Okay, it is live.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you a call when I get home. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Now it's blinking on me.
Okay.
All right. So, all right. So compassion then is to, or empathy is to, like Shelby, you're saying, is to enter into someone's feelings of what's going on and what they're going through, and so empathy. Do you have to experience what someone's going through to really have empathy for somebody?
Not really.
So what's required then to have empathy?
Sometimes just a listening ear.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, just to maybe sit down and be with them and listen to them and to, I don't know, some people may have a hard time with this, but emotionally go through what they're going through as you listen to them. When people tell you what's going on in their life, and it's sad or hard things, do you guys cry?
I do.
I do too. And those are ways that people can see that you're understanding, you're with them. And my wife, she's not a crier. She doesn't do that. So I don't know if it's an empathy issue with her or not. But anyway, so then the last one here is compassion, to suffer with somebody. How do we do that? I mean, do you really want to suffer with somebody? Doesn't sound like something I want to do.
I think it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Like for instance, I'll take my own situation.
Okay.
My husband died. My sister came up and spent several months with me
Okay.
and actually lived with me and participated. And I honestly felt that, if she hadn't felt any sympathy for me, she wouldn't have stayed as long as she did.
Mm-hmm. So she first had sympathy. She cares about you.
Mm-hmm.
She had empathy that she wanted to now be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has compassion because now she's going through or dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with in life.
And she took me home with her
Yeah.
to live with them.
Yeah. So she's made a sacrifice, to help you. And these are the ways that we really show love. And I think it's rare in today's society because people don't want to spend the time. They just, oh, really? I hope your day gets better. Move on. So.
I think it's easier if you like for instance, the situation I just explained,
Mhm.
my sister, but a complete stranger. A complete stranger. You know, you'd have to spend more time. I think you'd have to spend more time
Hmm.
to with this individual person.
I don't know. For some reason, I have different patients come in, and some of them I can just click with them like that.
Do you think it's because of their character?
Oh, I think definitely it has to do with the fact that I can identify with them and that I can understand them,
Mm-hmm.
and I then sit with them and listen to them. And so, you know, I don't necessarily get into the compassion in terms of dealing with what they're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because of my time limitation or whatnot.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think with some people you can do that easy. With others, it's, you know, maybe you don't have the understanding.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people I just flat out don't understand. You know, like honestly, my two dental assistants, they tend to be more anxious people, and I don't know. I'm just not an anxious type of person. Even when I was sitting there with my broken leg, I just sat there and said, "Oh, this is not good." You know, I wasn't. Well, now what am I going to do? Am I going to lose my leg? You know, am I going to die? You know, I don't know. I just wasn't anxious at all. I just totally, I don't know. Somehow God will take care of me. Just left it with Him. And so, those type of people, I talk to them, but I can't understand them.
Your wash.
I feel like another good example is like therapists. Like I go to therapy and I had a therapist in North Carolina and I
Uh-huh.
really liked her and I saw her every week
Uh-huh.
and she sympathized and had empathy for the things I was going through and I
Right.
wanted to talk about.
Right.
And now I got a new therapist here and I'm not a fan of it because she's not getting it. She's not really sympathizing with me.
Right.
So I feel like, I mean, not everybody can sympathize
Right.
with everybody.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I say I think there's definitely, you know, some issues with just, you know, personality, how they click. So, all right. Why don't we go ahead and go on here? Then Douglas Cooper. Maybe Shelby, you want to go on with this one?
Yeah. Douglas Cooper asserts that we attach virtue to aloofness, even in the church. We laud the person who is able to stay unemotional and detached through just about everything. During the funeral of President John F. Kennedy, people admired his widow for remaining strong and stoical, not shedding any tears or showing much emotion. We may be hurting on the inside, but we are not supposed to show it on the outside. So we keep bottling up the tears and the torment for fear of being viewed as unstable or emotional.
What do you guys think of that? So that's been a societal standard in the past, I'll say, for years, especially with guys. Guys were not allowed to cry. Guys were not allowed to show, you know, weakness per se, because that was all considered weakness. Do you think that's still the case today in society?
I could relate to that. 'Cause
Okay.
When my mom died, I'm an only child. My dad had already passed. And she was living, well, she was down here when she died, but the funeral and everything was in North Dakota. And I did everything, you know, to call people and so on. And
Right.
I was just kind of in a get the things done mode, you
Right.
know. I wanted to do it myself.
Yeah.
But it was afterwards where the tears came, you know, when you get cards
Yeah,
and calls. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you tend to be a task-oriented person?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Like to do it myself so I know it gets done right. Some cases.
Uh-huh.
This is true.
I think people who are task-oriented, you know, they look more so of what needs to be accomplished, making sure things are done in the right way. Those people can sometimes put their emotions aside and do what needs to be done, versus people who are more people-oriented and more, you know, okay, it's not so much what we get done, but how we get done and how everyone feels about what we're doing. Those people maybe have a little bit, you know, tougher time dealing with the nitty-gritty of what needs to be done in difficult situations. So, anyway, I think society has changed a bit. I think it's okay for men in general now to even in their own families, they weren't supposed to cry when things happen, and they're just supposed to be strong and show their boys this is the way you're supposed to be. And but I think a lot of that has changed now.
I mean, in my opinion, for
Uh-huh.
like people like my generation, I would say it's accepted,
Yes.
but a lot of people still won't do it because
Yeah.
I have a lot of guy friends and
Yeah.
they're very much on like I don't like showing emotion. I
Right.
don't like crying. I don't like
Right.
this. I have like one guy friend. He'll cry in front of me because like we're really close. But
Yeah.
he won't do it in front of other people.
Yeah.
And I know like for me, I don't like crying in front of other people.
Mhm.
I don't like people knowing like how I really feel inside. So
Yeah.
I only talk about it to a
Mm.
select few people.
Mm.
But I feel like it's very accepted,
Yeah.
like to like for men to cry and like to have those weaknesses.
Yeah.
But it's not like a lot of people still won't do it.
Yeah.
It's very rare,
Yeah.
even for people my age,
Yeah.
to see people who are willing to cry like that.
Okay. So I'm not saying you have to cry, but this is more so of what this is really talking about. These feelings and these emotions and being able to connect with people. Because if we hold this reserve, like this paragraph is talking about, if we hold this reserve, we're putting up a wall. And we don't want anyone to get too close. We don't want any people to understand too much. That's really what we're doing.
Right.
And so, we have to prayerfully, consider, how we should be. There's some situations I think that it's probably not a good idea to talk about maybe very personal things with people.
Right.
And I don't need to go over all those things, but then there's other times where we need to be a little bit more vulnerable in order to develop friendships, because once you open up and once people can understand that, hey, you're not just this tough person that everything's going good for you. They realize you're real. You've had hardships and trials too, so now they can relate to you. So their barriers come down, and now they can connect with you. So, okay, next paragraph. I guess it's my turn, isn't it? It is awkward for many to sympathize with people who are weak, handicapped, or hurting in some way. We find ourselves drawn to seemingly happy people and situations and aloof towards those who are suffering, always striving to have a good time. We avoid painful circumstances lest they remind us of our own vulnerabilities. Now, let me ask you the question. Who wrote this paragraph?
The author of the book.
The writer of the
Yeah.
book.
Bill.
He wrote this. That statement is about who?
Probably
He-
himself.
it is-
Himself.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, he doesn't specify anybody.
No.
He said it is
Yeah.
awkward.
Yes. So he's pretty much taking his own viewpoint and now projecting it upon everybody else. Now, do you know that there are people who are actually quite the opposite? They look for people with problems? Yeah, you do. I do too. It's like, why do everyone complain to this one person all the time? They hear all the problems from everybody.
That's me.
They're a magnet for negativity.
Because they know they can go to them and they'll listen.
Possibly. Or maybe they're very negative about life in general. And so have you heard the expression, birds of a feather flock together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's the opposite and you go to them and they lift you up.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. But he's basically talking about, someone who obviously is pretty happy, pretty positive. And so, the negativity, they like to just push away from.
Avoid it.
Yeah, avoid it. But then there's other people who, like one particular people group. Have you heard what a codependent is?
I've heard the term. Yes.
Codependent is somebody who they've had a very troubled upbringing, coming typically from their parents. And so they seem like they need to be attached to somebody who's got a problem to help them, and that's actually where they get feeling of value in their life. So if you're perfectly fine, you're happy, nothing's wrong with you, you could be, a perfect, spouse for them, and they could have a perfectly happy life with you, but they're not going to be happy with you. Why? Because they can't help you. That's a codependent. They have to have somebody to help. So what are they looking for?
Problems.
They're looking for problems.
Could
Yeah.
it be the opposite way around too? Because, I feel like it could, because I have a friend who, he's very, he has a lot of mental health issues. And he always looked to me for his happiness, to
Okay.
bring him, to be happy.
Yeah.
But I had to, I was going through my own thing, so I couldn't be that for him anymore. And then it got really bad for him because he was relying upon me
Oh,
to be, happy for him.
To
and
lift him
do
up.
things. Yeah.
yeah.
So I feel like it could be, vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That is why when we hear a terminally ill patient comment that he is going to die, we often respond, don't say that. No, you are not going to die. You will just be fine. The patient may desperately be seeking our understanding and sympathy to help him face death. Cooper tells of his uncomfortable experience as a chaplain visiting a young mother dying of cancer. How a person could fail more miserably at sympathizing, I do not know. He wrote later, instead of basing my response on her feelings, I based it on my own. What she had shared distressed me, made me uncomfortable. It did not fit my mood. It was unpleasant. I shrank. I could not accept the challenge or get involved, so I ignored it. What do you think about this? Have you seen yourself do the same thing, maybe? Avoid certain people or certain situations because you don't want to deal with it? Deal with what you know you're going to hear?
Is it not that I don't want to, or I don't know how to.
Okay.
I feel like everybody's done it at some point without realizing it.
I think so. Yeah. Yep. So nice. So, I don't really have an answer for this because I think the only way that this could change, if this is your feeling, if you just kind of want to walk away from these people, the only way that's going to change, I believe, is by prayer. Prayer is going to have to give you an understanding. God is going to have to give you an understanding of how to connect and how to relate to people. There might be some examples of people showing you, but the actual heart change can't come from others. It can't come from just, experience. It has to come from God. So God is going to be the one. And in terms of, what this book is talking about, if we're going to really sympathize and try to, connect and help people and their difficulties in life, this is the first step. So if you have a hard time relating to people, I would say that, it's probably going to take a bit of time in prayer for God to, work with you and to give you that heart that you need to have in order to connect and relate to people. So I remember one time at work, I don't know, probably all of us have had situations like this where you had one stinker at work that, they made work miserable. Yes? No?
Yes.
I think a lot of times, well, this one guy, he was more than just making life miserable for me. He was my boss for a while, and I later found out that he was actually trying to get me fired. And I found out that it came up in our conversation as we were talking. I was a Christian. He was an atheist. And I literally think there was some kind of spiritual battle there. And he and my other coworker, were just trying to make the company and the bosses look like I was doing something, stupid, wrong. I was just a no good engineer. Well, I started praying for him. I started praying for the situation. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, I get called up to one of the up front offices. And so I go up to the front office, and this other guy, who was my boss close to begin with, before this other guy came into the company, he said, we have decided to organize this new engineering group, and the engineer who hired you has requested that you come and join this group. And so you'll no longer be working for Jack, you'll be working now for me. And I was like, oh, whoa, that's good. Now I don't have to deal with that stress anymore. But I continue praying for the guy. The feelings that I had for him of just dislike, just wished he wasn't there, those went away, and guess what was replaced? Sympathy.
That's good.
Interesting. Wow. I felt sorry for the guy. I prayed for him, and I don't know, but after about a year, maybe a year and a half, the company finally fired him because he was actually not able to perform. They basically took me away from him. They took the other girl away from him. I think she got fired. And so it was just himself. He had to deal with the things that were going on, and he couldn't do it.
Kind of backfired on
I think it did.
him. Yeah.
And so, what can you do? But it really was an eye-opener for me, because I've heard the Bible say that you should pray for those who despitefully use you and try to hurt you,
That's right.
because by so doing, and treat them kindly, by so doing you're putting coals of fire on their head.
That's right.
That might sound bad, but back in the time, that's how they would make a little hot toddy to put on something that hurt. They put little coals in a little bag and put it on the spot that hurt. So actually, by praying and by doing good, you can actually make that person feel better, and maybe they won't be so grumpy anymore. So it was an eye-opener for me, how God can work and change your heart. Okay. Okay, well, we once I asked Bev.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once I asked the funeral director why makeup is used on the deceased. He said that they need to have some color, for they look too pale to their loved ones and friends. We say he passed away, instead of simply stating the fact that he's dead. Once a woman confronted her friend who had just lost her husband by saying, "He looks good, doesn't he?" She was looking at the deceased man, all made up by the funeral home personnel. "No, he does not. He looks dead," the widow exploded.
Okay, so who said this?
A friend.
Friend said
A
to
friend.
to the widow.
Oh,
He looks good.
I've heard so many people say that.
really?
Oh, my
Because of the
word,
way the
yes.
But to the
funeral-
family member who lost him?
No, just, I had an uncle that went to a lot of funerals, and he'd come back and he'd be telling maybe my dad or aunts and uncles, boy, he looked good.
Really?
Yeah.
But I think also, if a person is very sick before they pass,
Hmm.
you might see them going through their suffering.
Yeah.
And then the way, like she said, the way like it says, the way the funeral home fixes
Yeah.
them up.
Yeah.
That's why she might have said, well, he looks good, maybe compared to what
Yeah.
he looked like
Right.
when he passed away.
Yeah.
Well, I know when my dad died, the funeral home asked me, I think they asked me if his color, if everything was okay
Right.
or something like that, and I said, no, he needs a little more blusher because his cheeks were always rosy red.
Okay.
And so they added some more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure you guys have seen what dead skin looks like.
Mhm.
It's not pretty. In fact, what's interesting is this one lady, it was a cadaver that I worked on as a dentist when I was in dental school, and the cadaver was white, but as we read the record, we found out that it was an African American woman. And somehow in the process of getting them ready, the color had been like washed out of her. So she looked like she was Caucasian.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably the worst case I've ever seen. Because I don't think generally that happens with people when they are go through the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think black people do turn white, so I don't know what kind of chemical they used that did that. But of course, she was all preserved in formaldehyde and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So so anyway. Okay, next paragraph.
Okay. Even in death, we want to fake or gloss over our real situation. We seem unable or unwilling to deal with unpleasant reality. But Jesus showed his sympathy with the hurting and the grieving. He was not repulsed by human pain and suffering. He even used visiting the sick and the imprisoned, situations we easily shun, as criteria for being ready for his coming. See Matthew 25:36.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that? About dealing with reality with people, rather than just trying to sweep things under the rug or just paint them over and act like they're not there. As you guys think about yourselves, what do you think? What's your tendency? Are you someone who just is an avoider? Or do you try to be real? I mean, sometimes I'm someone who is just well, I don't know what you want to use the word, upfront, an open book maybe, and if you've got a problem with me, if I've done something that's bothered you, talk to me. You tell me what I've done or what I've said that bothered you. Do you know how many people will enter into that kind of conversation?
Very few.
Very few. Yeah. Most people are avoiders because it feels uncomfortable. But by not talking to somebody, you don't even give them a chance. To dialogue with you, to try to work things out. And how many, quotes, relationships, marriage relationships, have fallen apart because of this very thing? One or the other just shuts down, stops talking. You don't understand me. No sense in talking to you anymore. You're always like this, or you never that. So you just shut down. So what happens to the relationship? Dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in order to have real relationships, for one with God, you need to be open and honest with Him.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. You want to have a real relationship with God? Stop trying to make yourself look good to God. I mean, really, if you look at the Bible, you see the prayer of the publican and you see the prayer of the Pharisee.
Mm-hmm.
Which one, their prayer was heard?
Republican.
Why?
Because wasn't it the Pharisees that said
He's not like other men.
he wishes he's glad
He's thankful that he was not
was.
like that publican over there.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Is that real?
For him?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
No, it was not real. He glossed it all over. He was trying to make himself look good.
Oh, I thought when you said real, I thought you meant real feelings that he was
Well, no, I'm
feeling.
talking about the public, the Pharisee talking to God.
Oh.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not like that other guy. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. Was that real? No, the guy was
No.
a sinner.
Yes.
He wasn't being real with God.
He's
And
not
interesting, the Bible says his prayer was not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the publican, he He didn't try to gloss things over. He didn't try to avoid the truth. He said, Lord, be merciful to me. So to open yourself up and to see yourself really as you are, and sometimes that takes prayer. Lord, open my eyes. Help me to see my real heart, my real condition. And when you see, in fact, I'm listening to a sermon by Pavel Goya that Angela sent over to us, and this is basically, he was talking about Ezekiel, how in the first few chapters of Ezekiel, he's talking about, you this, you that. He's talking to the children of Israel. But then he gets to chapter 6, and all of a sudden he sees God high and lifted up. And all of a sudden he sees himself like, whoa, I'm not very good. And all of a sudden the rest of his book changes tone. He had an experience with God, and it changed his view. And so as we walk with God, as God is able to open up to us, our real condition, listen and accept what he tells you. And then try to enter into the reality of life with others. Okay. Next section here, or I don't know, we only got 5 minutes left, don't we?
Yes.
Let me see here. Yeah, okay, well, you save this one for next time. Any comments? Any thoughts about tonight? So honestly, is this easy for you guys to do? Just hard for you to do?
For me, it depends because I tend to sympathize a lot with people.
Okay.
Some people say I'm an empath because I
Okay.
empathize with people a lot.
Yeah.
However, I deal with a lot of my own mental health issues, so if I'm helping other people, it drains me in the process.
Okay.
So that's when it becomes hard for me because I get to a point where I'm not helping myself anymore. Since I'm not helping myself, I can't help you. And then I have to stop helping you to help myself.
I see.
And that has caused problems with some of my friends before.
Yeah, sure.
So that's where it becomes hard for me.
Yeah. So my guess is, based on what you're telling me, and I don't want to expose yourself, so if you don't want me to say anything, I'll be quiet.
It's okay, I'm very open about it.
Okay. So my guess is you have a tendency to have actually quickly be able to make friends with people, but then you also have a problem with losing them. Yeah, that's what I figured from what you're sharing there. So somehow God is going to have to work with you to help you realize or give you the ability to continue to connect with people and have care for them, even though, quotes, you're not getting anything out of it. And that's only something God can do for you.
I have like a great example. I mean,
Okay.
God kept them as like my friend. Like he brought us back to our friendship.
Yeah.
But I had this friend. He's one of my best friends now. But we were really good friends for a long time.
Okay.
And he was going through a lot of mental health issues. And he would always talk to me about it. And he's actually that one that relied upon me for his happiness.
Yeah.
However, I was going through a lot at the same time. And I told him, I was like, I can't do this anymore right now. I need to get help. About a month later, he tried to commit suicide. And he told me that I was one of the reasons why, because I stopped helping him.
Yeah.
So that took a major toll on me.
That didn't help.
Granted, it did not help at all.
Yeah.
It took a major toll on me because I was like, I didn't mean for that to happen. And I would just told him, because I told him I need to take care of myself before I could help him anymore. Granted, we're best friends now. We talked it through. I got the help I needed, and he got the help he needed.
Okay.
And God had brought us back together. But
Yeah.
after that, we weren't friends for a little bit because he blamed me for
Oh, wow.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's okay now.
Yeah. I know I had a conversation one time with my wife. She said I couldn't understand something. And, first time I ever had said this before, but it's actually true. Actually here on earth, there's nobody who understands you. There's not.
Mm-mm.
You can have really close friends that maybe know a lot about you and understand you a lot, but they really don't understand everything. So there's only one person who can really understand you. Who is it?
God.
God.
Because He can read the heart.
He's the one that if you're leaning on people to help and support and carry you through, they're going to let you down because they can't understand everything you're going through. And so I said to my wife, I said, you know, I can't understand you, but you can't hold that against me. I said, you need to talk to God.
Mm-hmm.
He can understand you. He can help you figure this out.
Yeah.
And, you know, so anyway, you know, we got 30 years of history. We've worked through a lot of different things. We're still together. She still loves me. I still love her. That's good. So, anyway, any other comments about this? Thought easy, hard? Definitely as I'm getting older and I have more life experiences, and also the fact that I walk with God, I care a lot more about people.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I've not gone through their stuff, but I can imagine people's pain. And so I enter into their life.
Is there a completeness in each person's life?
What do you mean by that, Jim? Completeness.
Kind of deep. I'm just thinking there's, you can have many different experiences in people. I just want to know if, you think about some of the people that get killed young in auto accidents.
Yep.
And I would think they would have a complete experience.
Okay, well, in terms of life experiences, yeah, they're probably not complete because their life was cut short.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. How can a person be complete? I'm talking about emotionally, intellectually, psychologically. How can someone find completeness?
Only through Jesus.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That feeling of peace inside.
yeah,
I mean, He can give you that.
yeah. So
Otherwise,
interestingly enough, I view my life from the standpoint of God's purpose for me. And after I had my accident, which things could have been a lot worse, and I could have died with logs. Who knows what the heck they're going to do sometimes. And this one hurt my leg pretty bad. But if it had gone differently, it could have killed me. And I actually just had a patient tell me, 2 weeks ago, some guy was cutting down a tree, dead, that he knew. And so a lot of people were telling me, you're lucky. What do you think? Am I lucky?
No, I think God has
Your purpose is
providence.
I agree with you, Jim and Shelby. I believe God has a purpose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because my very first words were, when I heard that the first time, I said, well, I don't necessarily believe in luck, but I do believe God has a purpose. And for whatever reason, He wants me to continue working in His vineyard.
Yeah.
So when the day comes that I've done what God
Mm-hmm. You run the race.
has purposed for me,
Mm-hmm.
life will probably be over.
I love the idea of thinking about purpose because,
Mhm.
actually what's crazy, literally before I came in here, I prayed to God and I was like, what is my purpose? Like, Father, I was like, because
Yeah.
I feel like
That's a great prayer.
I feel lost right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know my purpose.
Yeah.
But I find it, we're talking about
Mhm.
purpose right now. And one thing I love, though, about thinking about purpose is, yes, I may lose a lot of friends, but I think when I lose them, it's because I fulfilled my purpose in their life. Because I've had a couple friends recently that I have lost them as a friendship, and it's good that I did, because those people weren't good for me. But I remember, like, a few weeks before I lost that friendship, I talked to them about God.
Yeah.
And they weren't, like, they didn't really believe, or
Right.
they knew who he was, but, like,
Right.
they didn't care.
Right.
And I just remember, like, this one specific person had this really long talk with them about God.
Yes.
And then a few weeks later, they weren't my friend anymore.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that with them, that might have been my purpose, just to have that one
Yeah.
conversation with
Yeah.
them, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
And I find it really rewarding, though, with a lot of people,
Yeah.
that you can either, if they're still your friend or still your family or not, that you can talk to them, and if they're going through something and you sympathize with them, and then you bring God into it,
Yeah.
and they're like, thank you, like, they're
Yeah.
like, thank you, like, like, a great example yesterday. I have a friend who's going through something, and she went to one of her other friends first, and then she called me and was like, well, she said this and said that, and I was like, well, it doesn't matter what she says, or, like, necessarily. I was like, stop worrying. I was like, trust God.
Yeah.
And I sent her Jeremiah 29:11, and she messaged me, and she was like, I truly feel like God is speaking to me through you right
Oh,
now.
praise the Lord.
And I found that really rewarding.
Of course. Yeah.
And I don't know, I just love
Yeah.
this whole topic is probably like one of my favorite things to talk about with God. So
I'm glad you're here
sorry.
for it, though. I view things in terms of that topic about, yes, you do run the risk of bringing up, God or spiritual things with people that you've, begun to build relationships with, that life I chose not to speak to you. And so then you find out that I'm in heaven and you're not. And you look at me in heaven and you say, how'd you get there? Why didn't you tell me anything about it? And so, what would you have to say? Well, I was afraid we were going to lose our friendship. You think that'd be a satisfactory answer?
No,
I don't either.
not at all.
I don't either. So we need to view things through the eyes of God from redemptive standpoints. That yes, I'm probably taking a chance, and we need to pray about these times that we have these conversations.
Yes.
And we pray, God, give me the right words. Help me to say things in the right way. Don't make me condemnatory. Make me sympathetic. Make me kind. Whatever it is. And then try to reach out to people in the best way that we know how. And if they kick us to the curb, I love your attitude. I've planted a seed.
See, that's right.
I've been there. Something's been planted in their heart. And there's an individual here that I worked with for several weeks, and he's basically kicked me to the curb. And so, I don't know. I think the thing that he expressed to me, though, was in the process, early on in the relationship that I developed with him, I think he actually experienced the Holy Spirit. The reason why is because he described that when he opened up the Bible, he said he actually could understand, and he got so engrossed, he read for like 5 hours and thought it had only been 30 minutes. What do you think about that?
That's awesome.
I think he had experienced the Holy Spirit. So my guess is he might have to go down so low because some of the conversations that I had with him were, well, do you think sometimes people are just different? And so even though, yeah, that's the right way to go, there's exceptions. Well, what was he looking for? He was looking for him to be the exception. That he didn't have to do what the Bible necessarily said or what he knew or heard was right. And so I told him, I said, this is what I think. If you make yourself the criteria of what's right and what's wrong, eventually when you come later to the end of your life, you're going to find out it's too late. Like example, someone says, smoking doesn't bother me. I feel just fine. I can do everything I want. run a race, do whatever I want to do. So smoking doesn't affect me like it does everybody else. Is that a good way to objectively evaluate whether smoking is okay for you or not?
Because the only person they're fooling is themselves.
By time they find out that they were wrong, guess what? Their lungs are gone.
That's right.
They might have cancer.
Stop playing.
So sometimes I think maybe people have to experience things and fall and stumble, but then those seeds that are planted, hopefully they'll take sprout and they'll turn back to God. So that's why I pray and hope for with that individual. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and close with prayer. And okay, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to talk about this topic. For some of us, this might be an easy thing to do with people. For others, not. I pray as we share with each other, all of us might be a little bit more understanding and know how to have real meaningful relationships with people that we really care about and we have purpose in those relationships and in those lives that we touch. And I pray